Miles, can we get a thumbs up? You're good? We're recording?
Yeah.
All right. We're good when you're good, Rich.
We are Denver. This is Sampson doing Nothing Explained.
Like the doing Nothing Explained. What are you doing right now? Nothing Explained?
Explaining nothing.
Is that a thing?
And this is Denver, the whole place.
The whole thing.
Right here.
Yes.
You're listening to the sound of Denver.
Sexy.
So this is Nothing Explained. And today...
Every other sound of Denver is not this sound.
And thus, not Denver.
I love it. Because today, we're doing the art of voice acting.
Ooh, fun.
Oh my God!
So, we have a professional voice actor in the studio, Darren Roebuck.
All it means is they pay me for it.
Yes, he has a very chocolatey, lovely voice.
Chocolatey.
And as usual, Ryan Foo over
Hi.
here, who also has classically trained theater voice stuff all over his backstory.
Yeah, it's actually most of it's opera, but
Opera.
it all uses the mask and the voice in the same way. So,
Right on.
yeah.
So, no coincidence. I mean, I guess it's a coincidence, but I certainly didn't do it on purpose. Or maybe I should just say right out. I didn't kill June Foray, but she died this week. She's an extremely famous voice actor in the cartoon world.
Aww.
She died at age 99, so that's amazing. Hell
Awesome.
yeah.
Do you
And
have
she's-
any of the cartoons that she voiced?
Yeah, I have a,
You know
a long
her,
list. So
like,
people
really
call her
well.
she's the female Mel Blanc. You know who Mel Blanc, Bugs Bunny.
Man, I'm fucking uncultured.
Okay,
Oh
so-
my God, Mel Blanc was like the Michael Jordan of the voice acting
Who is
world.
Michael Jordan? No, I'm joking. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, I see in your opera world, your head's been a little in the sand. But I mean, everybody knows June Foray for one character in particular.
Yeah, Rocky from Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Rocky the
Oh,
Flying
really?
Squirrel.
Aww.
Yeah, can you? I haven't heard it in a while, so I can't do it. But I know it's so high and squeaky.
It's a little high pitched for me. I try to imitate it. I probably just sound like a bad imitation of a little girl, but
Can you do Bullwinkle?
I can if I work at it a little bit. And that's sort of the thing with like a lot of these things is I have to practice a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, you have to get
actually
into it.
come out with it. It'd be like,
I
it's
wish
like, be funny. It's like,
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
now I really can't.
Well, you're a ballet dancer. Would you just do a little ballet dance for us right here?
Yeah, just do a jump split for us. Because, because you can, right? Even in those high heels. Okay.
So you would probably recognize her, the granny. She was always the old woman in all the Warner Brothers stuff. Like, remember the Tweety's owner? Tweety
Okay.
Bird?
Okay.
She's so
But she was also, I think she was also Tweety Bird.
I'm not certain
not?
about that. I think Mel Blanc was Tweety as well.
Yeah, that's what it was. He was all those.
Yeah.
But Joe Smurf was a random one. She was
Wow.
like all the old ladies you see in any of the Duck cartoons. Launchpad McQuack and the Scrooge McDuck and all those. She was 6 voices on Heathcliff, 7 voices on Frosty the Snowman,
Aww.
Grandmother Fa from Mulan and Mulan 2.
7 voices on Frosty the Snowman. I mean, there was like 8 characters in the whole thing.
Well, I think wasn't there like the Land of Misfit Toys or whatever? No, that's a different cartoon. That's the animatronic one. I'm thinking
Correct.
of the actual
Yeah.
cartoon. Witch Hazel, like,
Oh my God, so
she was
good.
the fat, chubby witch from all the Warner Brothers stuff.
Right, that whenever she'd like run away, they would always left like hairpins spinning in her wake.
Oh,
Right.
yeah,
Like
totally.
such
Classic.
a brilliant animation touch there.
And she was
I always
also,
loved that as a kid.
Aunt May in the 1981 Spider-Man animated movie,
Wow.
right?
I'm a nerd, so that's the impressive one for me.
Cindy Lou Who. Wow. Right?
And she passed away this week?
Yeah,
Just-
Monday, I
That's
think.
sad.
Oh, Betty Rubble.
Okay.
Wow.
That's
and then
an important one.
Miss Prissy, which is the female chicken who was always after Foghorn Leghorn.
Oh my
yeah.
God. The really push.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aggressive one.
Super pushy.
Exactly. Like like really uncomfortably
Yeah.
affectionate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very like pushy. And 4 voices on Woody Woodpecker, but not actually Woody Woodpecker, which might have been Mel Blanc, but anyway. So she passed away at age 99 this week. So the show goes out to her and her career of being
One
an
hell of
amazing
a-
voice actress.
So great. Yeah. One hell of a good resume there. Wow. What a cool history.
Yeah.
Cool lady, I assume, too.
What a cool thing to leave behind.
Yeah, and it also says something too for aspiring voice actors out there is that you can be a voice actor basically until you die from old age.
Yeah.
As long as you can speak and act, you can be a voice actor.
Yeah, that is technically the requirement. You're right about that. Yeah, but it's beautiful because voice acting is something that affects, I think, all of us when we're young too. It's animation itself, I think, is something that always inspires young people. I'm a nerd, so I think of like the anime world, and there's tons of really famous anime voice actors that, like, if you get them in on your anime, it's like everyone's gonna watch it because they're so good.
Yeah,
So
that's actually one of the main reasons I can't watch dubbed anime, like where you have the audio is dubbed, like American audio. For one thing, the way that the Japanese people choose to speech puts a lot of emotional content into it, and that is not translated well at all. It's impossible to translate in a lot of ways.
yeah, it's my favorite example is Dragon Ball Z. If you know the main character Goku.
Wait, that's not Dragon Balls.
No.
Oh, shows you how much I pay attention to that part of the world.
Ah, God, I hope that was a joke. So, the Goku character in American, right? He's like, I am Goku, and when he like charges this thing up, he's like, Kameha. It's like this very like powerful. And in Japanese, it's like almost the opposite. He's like, oh, Kameha. It's like this high pitched, totally. So anyway, it's for the main hero. Oops, I hope I didn't mess up your camera.
No, that's all right. I'm not too good looking anyway. It's
That's
a voice
right.
show.
Good, yeah. It's all about your voice anyway. Our engineer gave us a thumbs up.
The interesting
so.
thing about anime is that there is like something will happen to whatever character, and then they'll just go around the room essentially of all the other characters who are involved in the scene, and they'll just be like looking off camera, and they'll just say the character's name, you know. So in that case, you'd be like Goku, and the guy's like Goku,
Yeah.
Goku,
Yep.
and everyone just says the name, but it's just an emotional content thing.
I always-
that doesn't translate, and so they always do weird stuff. But anyway, the point there being is that in Japan they pay a lot of attention to voice acting.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. You're famous if you voice a famous cartoon character.
Yep.
And in the United States, especially for something that's foreign coming here, they're just throwing people at it, and it's just they don't put much attention to it
It's
at
not
all.
the same thing. for sure.
Sort of, but there's also some stuff just to counter your point here a little bit. Like I did I have a good client in Turkey, and I've done a bunch of things for them, you know, English voiceover stuff for them, and they sent me a little project the other day that turned out to be a lot more challenging than I thought it was going to be. And basically their client had come up with a product. It was a super cool product. It's basically a smart cane for blind people that does all this cool stuff, but they're running a Kickstarter program where this blind guy that came up with the idea, and then some young engineers from a contest who basically figured out how to make this thing were the stars of this Kickstarter video, and they wanted to be able to play it in English-speaking areas to raise money. So they asked me to overdub both characters. Well, okay, great. That's fine. You know, I actually really enjoyed challenges like that. And so I jumped in with both feet. Big problem. Sometimes for some of the lines, what they're saying in Turkish takes 12 seconds. And to say it in English takes 9 seconds.
Oh, so you have to develop some totally different, what would be the word for that? Sort of phrasing and context.
Well, what I was hoping in some of this stuff, like I was actually trying to rewrite lines so that they could say it and try to match the amount of time, because at that point, like matching lip flaps like doesn't happen anymore, you know. And really, there was a couple things where like I would just be destroying the content to rewrite this stuff, and I was just kind of hoping they'd cut those 3 seconds out of the video because the audio just doesn't translate. Some of these big challenges, and then with Japanese being such a radically different language from
They speak
English.
like Yoda. They speak in reverse.
Well, and it's so tonal, and the ways certain words would be expressed as like definitions in English. It's trying to get it all to line up is
Pretty hard.
beyond doable, really.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
How did you get into voice acting?
Well, it's funny. I get asked that question a lot, and I wish I had a much shorter answer. But it really started when I was about 5, and I started getting into music and being taught it in my family. And then maybe when I was 7 or 8, I found my grandparents' little cassette recorder that had a little microphone. And my sister's also an actress, and she and I would sit around and make up little radio shows on this thing just because we were bored. And so that's really where my love for recording came about. Then being a musician, I started developing home studios ever since I was about 16. Then I was playing in a band, and also playing Scrabble online with a KGLR DJ, unbeknownst to me at the time.
Wow.
And in the little chat thing, we're like, what do you do? What do you do? Kind of stuff. And she said she was a DJ. And I said, well, I'm in a band. Why don't you have us on for an interview? And she said, okay. So the lead singer and I came in for the interview. And by the end of the interview, we had our own radio show on KGLR.
Nice.
Was that Socks, Cue Ball, and
That
Socks?
was Cue Ball and Socks,
That's
yes.
funny. I didn't realize we launched your career. Thank God for us.
That was one big step along the way. And so that was 75 Saturday mornings in a row of practice.
Yeah.
And then doors started opening here and there. People just saying, oh, you should be on this website, or oh, here, you should be on this website. Or my mom actually sent me an article from the LA Times talking about a voice actor who is making a living using these different websites that I now use to make my living. And
What is one of those? Give us one of those websites.
well, voices.com is a good one. Voice123. There's a bunch out there now. And the more I look, the more I see that there's probably a dozen that are worthwhile,
Cool.
all based in different places.
And so it's got a resume of like your voice work. People can click on it and then they can send you gigs and you just record and send it back.
Yes, and that would be like 0.1% of the time.
Whoa.
Most of the time, I go through audition lists, and I crank out auditions with 50 to 100 other middle-aged males and do everything. So,
So I imagine that means you need your own home studio, right?
it's definitely a DIY world. Yes. Something like 55% of my clients are not in the U.S. And in the last few years, I've sold my voice to 38 countries on 6 continents, and my feet have never left my studio in Boulder.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's definitely, the internet's a cool thing, you know?
Yeah, the internet's awesome.
And it brings so many people together, you know, like being an English speaker, a native English speaker, gives us a great advantage in the voice world because 25% of all commercial transactions originate from the United States. So if you're in Turkey or Indonesia or India and you make some software, you need to be able to market it to an English-speaking audience. So there's work for us internationally. The counter to that is that English-speaking voice actors, for the most part, tend not to try to learn foreign accents, and there's a ton of work for foreign accents spoken in English.
Wow.
So I know I do my accents poorly, but I get hired a lot just by virtue of the fact that there's not a lot of competition.
Huh, interesting.
That's cool.
And I
That's
just
good to
try. I
know.
go on YouTube. I listen to people that speak it naturally. I send in my audition, and my rate of winning those
Higher than
is
the
much
normal.
higher than for the English speaking, you know, hi, I'm the 25-year-old IT guy kind of stuff,
Yeah.
which is a lot of what the auditions are.
Right. I don't have a huge interest. This is probably revealing of what a shitty person I am, but I don't have a lot of interest in learning other languages, but I would love to sit down with a linguist and learn the accents. Like I would, that's so interesting to me.
Yeah, that's basically next on my list for voice knowledge and acquisition and training. And actually here in the Denver area, there's a couple people that specialize in it. That,
Really?
That specialize in teaching accents and
do people
dialects.
specialize in like one dialect, or are they just like that's the thing they do? Is like all dialects?
Yeah, they tend to boast about how many that they can offer.
Okay.
And people that are real versatile professional voice actors, you know, sort of the upper echelon, those people can do hundreds.
Hundreds.
Yeah, well, if you break it
makes sense.
down, you realize that in the United States alone, there's like 20 recognizable accents.
Right, totally.
And then when you start adding in things like socioeconomic status to the region as well, then
Right.
it varies. It's and like the UK, you know, everyone thinks they have an English accent, but there's like 8 distinctly different ones just in London.
Right. So
Yeah.
if you just spoke English and Spanish, there might be like 100 accents.
Oh, and with Spanish accents, there's
tons.
yeah. That's like ridiculous, you know. And
Yeah, I especially like the Spanish versus Mexican of Español versus Español.
Oh, and then there's Mexico City versus like Oaxaca or Tijuana. And then there's also like the educated like elites in Mexico City, and they speak more of a Castilian type of accent versus the regular everyday working slob, you know? Yeah, I think it's pretty funny. You know, like I got hired recently to do a Russian accent, and I just thought it was so funny when I read the thing because I was like, Russia's huge.
Right.
Like part of Russia is practically China.
Yeah.
but the accent they want isn't even necessarily like a Moscow accent. It's just like that Hollywood Russian where it's like, you're supposed to sound like a gangster.
Right.
Natalie, bring me the vodka.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I am a Russian hacker and I'm complaining about your internet speeds.
It's a marketing ploy.
Well, I want to have a lot of fun with voices and accents and stuff, but let's do you wrote a kid's book here. So let's talk
You
about
wrote a
this.
kid's book?
Here, hold that up for the camera.
Yep.
You got a good angle.
Yep. I wrote and illustrated a kid's book. It came out in the middle of 2014.
What's it called?
And he illustrated it as well.
I illustrated it as well. I did the whole thing without any help from anybody.
Amelia lives happily ever after.
That's what it's called. I wrote it for my nieces. I've been a doodler my whole life, drawing characters and everything. It's like if you looked in my notebooks from high school, there was no geometry or chemistry in there. It was all a bunch of drawings of stuff. And my family has always been encouraging me to do a kid's book. Do a kid's book. You should do kids' books. And for the most part, I was like, yeah, whatever. It's something I'll do when I'm old. And mostly I was just never inspired. And then when my sister was pregnant with her second kid, it just kind of hit me. I realized what I wanted to say to them about independence, especially female independence.
I think this is a great page for where he's currently talking about.
Yeah, it's like
all the different life paths.
Breaking a lot of stereotypes too. It's like Amelia rocks, but Amelia's also a scientist, and she does what she wants. She does what she sets her mind to.
She can meditate if she wants. Goddammit.
That's a big part of the book, but a lot of it also came from some frustrations I had as a kid with the general fairy tale format and the whole happily ever after thing, and I was like, that's a cop out.
The Disney cop out.
What is happily ever after?
Yeah, it's
Right.
more of a lottery in their case.
And happily ever after, and the setup for it is so like, just kiss the handsome prince and everything will be okay. And I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
That's a whole lot of effing BS.
Welcome to Tiny Magical Animals Dating Service.
Right.
We have found one perfect match for you. Please do not argue.
So a big point of the book is happily ever after is a gift you give yourself. It's something that you can do right now just by focusing on it. And it's not something that someone else brings you. It's something that you bring to the world.
Aw. That's
So-
a good message for kids.
It's a good message for everybody.
It's a good message for everybody. Yeah, there's probably some parents who pick this book up thinking to read it to their kid, and they're reading it out loud, and then they're, and Amelia. And it hits them inside, Like,
It's
good.
true. A regular compliment I get is, this is the book I wanted when I was a kid.
Oh,
And it's been given to as many people at their college graduation as it has to 4-year-olds at their birthday. So
Awesome.
It's,
I think that's
congratulations.
That's awesome because, graduating college, I do not consider you an adult, honestly. Having been there, having looking back on myself at that age, I was not an adult.
I don't know what an
think it
adult
was
is.
Yeah, that's true too. That's a big part of being adult is realizing that's not really a thing. But and the other half of it too is also just getting your butt kicked and being okay with that, because that's what to me being an adult is. You're going to get your butt kicked and you either deal with it or you don't. But
yeah, a lot of school is just practice and being responsible.
yeah. So, but that's cool. Like, I'm glad you're bringing a voice to that.
Oh, what
Why?
a pun.
Oh my
Thank
God.
you.
Are we back on topic?
Oh my God. What a
was full
professional
circle.
host.
Hey, so let's another famous voice actor. I like Mark Hamill because of the Joker.
Yeah.
That's a big one for me. He also did a bunch with Robot Chicken, and then he basically did every side character from like a massive amount of cartoons, which I was gonna write him down, and I was like, there's no point in writing this down because he doesn't have a lot of like frontline characters outside of the Joker, but he was like 5 and 6 side characters in like 25 different cartoons. So
That's awesome.
yeah, that's always interesting.
Versatility is how you make a living.
Yes.
In that biz.
In the voice acting biz.
Yeah, and well, really, I've found that the gig is a lot like a sales job, where your auditions are like your cold calls, and you got to put a lot of them out there, especially at the beginning before people start calling you back. And the more you say yes, the better off you are, and then be professional after that. Show up and actually deliver, and when they ask for a redo, you redo it and you send it to them, and know that they need it now, and you deliver now.
Be a
Makes sense to me.
Then grind it out. That's when it's I always like my mind always goes to drummers. In fact, one specific drummer. But like, there's a guy I know who's a talented drummer, and he always just complains about just the general state of things. He has this general idea that he should already be famous or whatever. but he's so attached to the famous aspect of it, he's really detracting from the grinding aspect of it, you know? So like, he's like, I shouldn't be doing this all day, every day. I should be famous. I'm a good enough drummer, you know, but
what would it mean to be
missing out on
famous?
the work.
Wouldn't you do it all day, any day, every day if you were famous too?
Exactly. Maybe it's the paycheck or whatever, but
yeah.
It's anyone else at the top of their game. They didn't get there by slacking.
And that's what
they
they'll
got
tell
there
you.
by doing it 5 or 6 hours a day, every day,
Yeah.
working with a coach, focusing on it, practicing with a purpose, not just playing the same stuff over and over again. It's always trying to extend your craft forward, and it's definitely the same with voice acting.
Yeah.
That's
Or
totally
being a recording artist in general.
Even the people who got it handed to them, in a sense, are still very good at what they do, and they work really hard. You know?
Sure.
Some people are luckier than others, but that doesn't mean that they're slacking.
Yeah, I think also you just get knocked off the top of the podium if you're not working hard.
That's for damn sure.
You know?
It's a very competitive field, and in a competitive field, you got to be on it.
Mm-hmm. This is America. There's somebody else trying to do what you're trying to do.
Yeah. The upside, though, as far as like artistic stuff, is that your results are subjective. So one of the things I really like about the voiceover community is that everyone's very supportive. And people, even though we're all competing together and against each other, everyone realizes that the end result is just up to somebody's opinion and whether or not you fit their project. And so it really isn't about me being better than you.
It's just different.
It's about all of us putting in our best, and somebody's going to be right.
Yeah.
And so that's a really cool thing, is that you can get people that are going to shake your hand and say, yeah, I'm a voice actor too. And hey, have you tried this technique, or have you worked on this? And everyone wants to share. And it's kind of a cool open source type of community. But when it comes down to the auditions, everyone's going to get real serious about putting in their best effort. And the good ones make the short list a lot.
Well, that's awesome. So also because it's such an insular DIY community, like I could see a lot of voice actors who, I think I only know 1 or 2 people, but there are some folks I know who wake up every morning and drink their tea and hit the studio and do their thing and go to sleep and wake back up and do their thing. So it's nice to hear there's still that community of voice actors who talk to each other.
Indeed. You have to seek it out, though. I mean, I could very easily never see any of my clients or any of my colleagues in my daily work.
Right.
But because a voice actor needs coaching, there's no doubt about that. You need to reach out to people who are, a few steps down the path from you and pay them their fee, because they're worth it, and they'll help you develop stuff. Because there's a couple of big myths in voice acting, especially from the layman or the newbie's point of view.
Tell them.
I'm going to tell you right now. And on that, we're going to cut to commercial.
And we're back.
Yes. And we're back. So one of the big myths is, and this has actually become a cliche in the voiceover world, is my friends tell me I have a great voice. Well, let me tell you this. Nobody told me I had a great voice until after I'd been a voice actor professionally for about 3 years. And it's probably because I've developed my voice.
Yeah.
But
And
nobody
for
ever...
different uses and different contexts too.
Yeah, and it just sounds different now.
Yeah.
Because I've really developed it. It's like if I were lifting weights for 3 years, I'd look different.
Yeah, that makes sense. Or if you were a dancer, you would probably walk different because you're used to how your body moves in a way that you weren't before.
And if you watch ballet dancers walk, they really do walk differently.
Totally.
And the other is that people think that by doing the auditions, they're basically practicing, and so it's like your work each day is practice. And it is, but you can also be rehearsing your bad habits. So you need coaching.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to just reinforce sort of the bad habitual patterns. Yeah.
Which you're more likely to do since you're essentially guessing at technique anyway.
And you're inside of your own head.
You're totally inside of your own head. You're in a massively different world of criticism of your work than somebody else outside of you. And so that's it's real easy to fall down some bad rabbit holes without reaching out to the community to get some feedback. So
when you're doing a piece and someone says, all right, I need you to do a car commercial that's selling this Ford Mustang or whatever it is, do you try and choose a vision and stick to that one vision and do a bunch of takes on that? Or do you create a couple of different visions on how you think you could appease the customer and then send in all of them? Does it depend?
The answer to that is yes to all of it. Primarily, you want to prove to, typically the person that's casting this is a media producer. It's not the end client.
Right.
So these are people that are just sitting there in front of their computers, grinding out ones and zeros all day long, trying to make something that pleases their clients. And more than anything, I mean, they want the right sounding voice, but they also want to make sure that be affirmed that you're someone that's going to come through for them, that you're actually going to deliver the performance and the high quality audio on time and on budget. And a lot of times these, the more professional people will give much more specific notes on the audition. And so in that case, it can narrow it down to they're very specific about what they want. So I'm going to give my best version of that.
Right.
More often than not, they don't give a very specific version.
Oh, really?
And so in keeping the rule of an audition shouldn't be more than 2 minutes long, I'll give 2 or 3 different versions so that I can show them my range.
Yeah.
And also so that I can show them the professionalism of how I present the audition, even with how I've written my little paragraph that explains me, all the way down to the quality of the audio, and even sometimes putting music behind it and producing the whole spot as if the audition were the final thing. So I can prove to them I know the world you're in and I can do the job.
Well, that makes sense to me because coming from the actual theater world, it's you're not looking for an actor to fill a character perfectly, partially because you don't know what you want that character to be yet. So what you really are looking for, I think, as like a director or a producer, is somebody you can play with. You know, someone who you can say, all right, yeah, let's do it more somber rather than sad. I want somber. Or more detached and melancholy, not attached and really sad about it. And sometimes you play with them and it works really well, and sometimes you go, nope, never mind, back to the first one. So it makes sense to me that you'd want a voice actor to have that kind of range and that kind of be able to take notes and respond.
Range is definitely the key, and the longer the piece, the more that is required.
Right.
I've many times won characters or multiple characters for video games, because each line will give them 3 levels of intensity.
Oh, right.
And then when I deliver the final piece, I give them 3 levels of intensity on each line, because they don't really know what they need at that point.
Right.
You know, the voice really comes at the beginning of that whole process.
Yeah.
So they're not really sure what they need. And so by giving them extra, they don't have to call me back as much.
Yeah.
And so they can stay on their timeline. And then when they see that I'm auditioning for the next one, they're like, oh, good. Darren will actually get the job done, and he'll give us extra stuff. So yeah, let's put him at the top of the list.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes total sense. Also, like, the video game could change. You could start out and they want it to be really intense in the scenes, but if they change it later on and it's not a firefight beforehand, then maybe it just doesn't require that.
And you can pretty much count on it to change.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like in any good art piece with any good director or producer.
Right. Yeah. They follow their own path, and it's hard to predict it from the beginning.
So in the scope of your work, how much of it is video games? How much of it's commercials? How much of it's ebooks? Like for you personally?
That's a good question. Yeah, and actually I'm glad you put that little qualifier on there too, because every voice actor falls into, there's sort of like 3 things that they're known for.
Gotcha.
You know, and whether or not you can do other stuff, you may as well just sort of own your 3 best pieces and try to live in that world, even though it may not be what you think is the most fun. What's really fun is getting paychecks.
Yeah, well, you want to be supported for the work that you're doing.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, I have a coach who's a famous voice actress, and she gets all of these really great, awesome, high-profile jobs, but she's also like, you know, I can also play a mom, but I mostly get hired for the little boy who cusses. And so she's like, so I just sort of own it. But to go back to your original question, longer form stuff tends to be things that I get. Like, I actually do a lot of explainer videos and training videos.
Narrative-based stuff?
Where they have to be their best buddies. So you got to keep your energy up and a smile, a literal smile on your face, and do it for, 35 or 40 minutes worth of recording, which takes like 3 hours to produce.
Yeah.
So it can be exhausting. It takes a lot of stamina. You got to stay in shape. And I'm surprised at how much my face muscles and my abs hurt at the end of a day.
Hell yeah.
Because I've basically been smiling and doing crunches.
Yeah, definitely. So you do narrative work. What else? Have you ever done like video games, ebooks?
Done a lot of video games. I always tend to try harder because character acting is my favorite.
Okay.
And so I always try to push myself more for those. car commercials are hard, and there's people that specialize in it.
Yeah, that's a pretty specific one, right?
That stuff in movie trailers. There's people that are just sort of born right to be able to do those kind of high intensity, real heavy, like, stuff that like crushes my own voice kind of spots.
And like you're saying, you can do it for 3 or 4 hours at a time, so you don't want to do stuff that's damaging to outside of your natural range too much.
Yeah, I played a gangster character that had a Latino accent in a video game, and we did it was a directed session, so I was on with the director and the producer in my headphones while I'm talking. Yeah, and what was even more awesome was the director was in Korea and the producer was in China, and I was in Boulder, and we were all together on Skype.
That's great.
Once again, love the internet.
Are you allowed to say what video game it was?
Nope.
Well, never. Just kidding.
I know, you get used to signing NDAs when you're in the voice world. But
way to be a professional.
Does that change when it comes out? I mean,
but they never tell me, right? And they never tell me the name of it either. It's typically like a code name or code number when when they give me the script, or it'll be just my lines.
Huh. Because
I won't see the rest of it.
Liability, I understand.
Yeah, but I mean, wouldn't normally hear when that video game has been released.
I always ask them, and by the time it comes out, they've forgotten. Because it takes them a long time to produce it.
They're like, that was 4 or 5 gigs ago. I don't know.
Yeah, they're like, who is in this?
Well,
have you ever like?
I don't remember.
Have you ever like heard a friend playing a video game and then like a voice comes on? You're like, oh shit, like that's me.
I wish. No,
cool.
I haven't yet. I'm sort of waiting for that. It's like a buddy of mine that's a photographer, and he was like, it was a really great day when I saw my photo on a bus go by.
That's nice.
And I was like, yeah, I'll have myself on the radio someday. But I get so we had the longer form narrative stuff, the regular explainer videos. It's just like, hey, this is our product. This is the XB925 and blah blah. It's like that kind of thing where it's 1 and 2 minute explainers.
Who is that for?
Boy, that's for everybody. Every startup in the world needs something on their website that explains who they are. So there's a zillion of these 1 and 2 minute videos for everybody, and everyone in business needs a voice.
Right. Yeah, and that's very important because who is speaking is the product, right? They represent the product in that way.
And sounding like the product. So I've done a couple where I kind of just made fun of the product, because I was like, there's a couple for like the military and a couple for like the oil and gas industry where I just sort of played it up and played kind of like the tough guy kind of thing. And they've hired me back again repeatedly.
He sold them the whole seat, but they only needed the edge.
Yeah, well, I've got a sort of a funny voice acting comment on that. Rick and Morty, whose new episode is out tonight.
Woohoo! Yes.
I imagine you must respect Justin Roiland quite a bit.
I love everything about Rick and Morty. Just appeals to me.
Yeah, well, Roiland, who does the Rick and the Morty voice, also he's got a whole writer's room of people, and they did 2 episodes on what they called interdimensional cable. And essentially, he was just getting writer scripts and doing these sketches all by himself. They'd give him like a handle of whiskey and just be like, go. And some of the ones when he was talking back in an interview, said he was pretty much making fun of them. Like, he gets one that is kind of like a popular one now, that he got the script and it was realfakedoors.com. And he's like, this is so stupid. And he's like, so the way he did it was sort of making fun of it. He's like, oh, everybody, welcome to realfakedoors.com. But it worked really well.
Yeah. And the Dinglebop, what was the... They just played it off really soft, and you could hear them like being like, I can't believe I'm saying these words changed together.
Yeah. But it works so well because it's this uniqueness that you can't get unless you have that take on it. So, So maybe that's part of the reason they hired you in those oil and gas things, is it was that's exactly what they wanted, was it to be a little overdone.
It is, and there's some psychology behind it too. Because when we communicate with each other, about 90% of our communication is visual. Even though we're talking to each other, I'm seeing the expression on your face, and I'm actually, even though it might be a bit under the radar, in my subconscious, I'm watching your lips move too.
Right.
So when you're trying to communicate purely audibly, you need to ramp up the emotion to be over the top to be able to communicate it.
That makes sense.
You
Yeah.
also need to talk slower,
And
because it takes longer for people to take in that audio information and process it than visual information.
It's not as much data.
overemphasizing the accents and consonants and
Yeah,
vowels.
it's not as much data, and we're visual creatures, so
Right.
we've sort of evolved to prioritize our RAM to visual input.
That makes sense. Is that something that's pretty well acknowledged in the voice acting community? That like overemphasizing is sort of important for that reason?
Indeed, and I think it's also the same with singers too.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
You
that
know,
makes sense.
if you play that emotion over the top, it feels right.
Yeah, it dings in a way that
It connects.
doesn't normally.
So yeah, now I have a rule for myself that when I go through the auditions, I try to do 7 or 8 takes, no matter what it is, and then once I think I have a good one, I always try to do the over-the-top version. And more than half the time, I submit the over-the-top version because it feels
Really?
right.
Ah,
It's
that's
the
super
energy.
interesting.
Extra energy is what ultimately ends up being the thing.
Yeah, it's sort of trippy to me that so much of art that is first is a reflection of real life and then is like a super meta reflection of real life ends up being more realistic than its original interpretation.
Well, I mean, yeah, marketing is hyperbole.
Yeah,
you
that's
want
for sure.
you want people. You're attaching like a much stronger narrative to that product than anyone would normally do. You know, like
This is going to solve all of your problems.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yep.
That was so believable.
I mean, that's why we sell products, buddy.
Yesterday, I wasn't so confident in my basketball skills, but today I'm drinking Sprite.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, even as a crossover back to the book here, I knew I had the page right when I draw it. I spent lots of hours drawing the illustrations. And when I felt the same emotion as the character I was drawing, I knew I had it right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, also like for kids too, for the kids book, you want it to
It's for the kids.
yeah, you want it to resonate with them in a way that really feels. I would get very Jungian on it, get Jungian on this shit, which is like
Please do.
yeah, we're all looking for icons, we're looking for our gods, we're looking for our mythologues, and those are never. There's no mythologue that's like the average dude. They're all.
There is, but it's actually blown out of proportion.
Even the average dude is blown out of proportion. Yeah. So we're looking for these metaphors for existence, these characters that are almost caricatures of larger versions of ourselves, because that's what we want to be. And that makes so much sense.
Indeed, and we take a lot more from it. Yeah, that's totally the truth. But we also are seeking a certain type of realism, a certain authenticity in it as well.
Yeah.
So
They're not unrelated is the really trippy part, right?
it's totally true. It's
Yeah.
just basically it's like turning up the gain on it a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's the real thing bigger.
Yeah. Which feels more realistic. So,
Yeah.
very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I had one of my favorite video game voice actors. Also I'm going to prelude him with an old movie called The Guyver, which is like a super corny Korean flick. Has anybody here ever seen that?
I
No.
know the Guyver.
Oh my God, it's so corny.
It's based on an anime.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But then another anime came out after it
Yeah.
because the movie
And
was so
you also have the
corny and
Witchblade, which
successful.
is the same magical system, essentially.
Right.
It's more science than magic. But.
Yeah. So it's without getting into it at all. He was a really good voice actor for the Guyver thing, and then he became, I think he was an anime voice actor for the Guyver and the real life, because the real life one had like a suit. He had like blades that came out of his elbows and shit. Very 90s. And,
Awesome, Taylor.
Yeah. And he went on to do Solid Snake, which is the main character from Metal Gear Solid, which is a pretty
PlayStation.
Yeah, so that guy's name is David Hayter. And
Well, I've heard of David Hayter.
yeah, David Hayter's pretty popular, but they replaced him for one of the most recent Solid Metal Gear Solid games, and there's a huge uproar. I think they ended up replacing him anyway, but that's how much people cared about this voice, this icon,
Right, because they feel it, and that voice is a lot more of the character than the drawings are.
Right.
That's where the real emotion
Oh,
comes
hell
from.
yeah.
And you can see it without the sound, and it just isn't the same.
Right.
That intent, that real humanness comes from the person.
Right. That makes sense why in anime and in drawing that the voice would be so important, because the pictures, the visual could never emulate humanity in the way that an actual human voice could. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very curious. Do you guys have any other famous voice actors that you love or that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, I wrote a couple down.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look some up.
Phil Lamar, who was the guy from Police Academy, the black guy who did all the crazy sounds and voices. You know,
That guy is like
He's
seriously gifted. He's from Mars.
and also I would like to shout out his role in Spaceballs.
Oh,
Where he was the radar operator, who was
right.
also an asshole.
Yeah.
Guy, but he's like, they got the bleep.
Yeah, but he's
creeps.
also
I like H. John Benjamin. I couldn't remember his name. He's the guy who does Archer.
Oh,
God,
yeah.
he's so good. He's done a couple of other ones, and he's also a stand-up comic.
Are we still doing phrasing? That's
Yeah,
like
there you
one
go.
of my favorite things ever.
Is this phrasing? Yeah, that's great. It's fantastic. I love Archer so much.
Yeah, I got to shout out Debbie Derryberry. She's
Debbie
been,
Berry.
yeah, she's been a coach of mine off and on for the last year or so. And big shout out to her because a show that she's currently on, F is for Family, just got picked up for another season with Netflix.
Yeah.
And so she plays the little girl on that. If you've heard of Jimmy Neutron, have you heard of Jimmy Neutron?
Hell yeah.
She's Jimmy Neutron.
No way.
What?
I love that.
Yeah, she's
Incredible.
She's an incredible character actress.
And what a thing to be able to say,
and-
like, I am Jimmy Neutron, and it's true.
And super cool lady. She's hysterically funny. And good coach. I mean, as far as I can tell, you know, I mean,
A lot
but
of young boys are female voice actors, right?
That's true.
Yeah. Is it just the timbre of their voices, or what is it? Because Bart Simpson is also a female voice actor.
Indeed. I think it's because part of it's timbre, and I think part of it is that accessibility to the vocal range. You know, like I can get that high and stay there for about 10 minutes, and she can do it all day long.
Well, women just naturally have a larger octave range in terms of what they can produce,
And it's just
right?
higher pitch. You know,
Higher pitch,
it's that, you know, it's like I'm a baritone. It's like really hard for me to do any soprano notes or even be passable in a female or prepubescent type of range. But women can do that.
Yeah. I'm looking up different voice actors for different things.
Hank Azaria. I'm going to shout out Hank Azaria. He's like 1/3 of the Simpsons characters.
He's an
Nice.
all-star, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And as a screen actor too, the guy is a true chameleon. He's definitely a hero.
Yeah. He's one of those guys who's just grinder, you know? He's never been like super famous, still a household name, but you can tell that he just works hard. Like he's always doing something.
He owns his characters, right? Are you go for school by Lumen? Hey, Luby Tuesday.
I really like I can't find him right now, but the guy who does Brock and the guy who he also does
The
on
Flea on the Tick.
Yep, and also does Family Guy. He's Joe, the guy in the wheelchair.
Yeah, and he was Elaine's boyfriend, Putty.
What's that dude's name? Who is he?
I have no idea. Wait, did you
damn
do
it.
the
Oh, yeah,
Prince
the guy.
Gets His Grooves Back or whatever it is? With Oh man, that's when he was Gronk.
Oh.
I need to talk to squirrels. Squeaker, squeak 'em, squeak, squeak 'em.
Yeah, he's got that like deep American voice.
He says we ought to go this way.
Yeah, exactly. He falls into a niche that's so iconic that he can get cast a lot. That's
Yeah.
One of the things about Debbie that I've been sort of impressed with is like ever since I met her and took some lessons from her, I started looking up her filmography and realized that even on F is for Family, where I know the character that she's playing, I don't recognize her voice.
That means she's talented.
She's sickly talented, yeah. And then, you know, like in the major animation movies, you know, like Disney and Pixar and that kind of stuff, you know, they cast A-list screen actors for the parts because they obviously want to sell the movie.
Yeah.
But then there's people like Debbie and a handful of other people that come in and play all the secondary parts. And they'll do
Yeah.
tons of them, and you won't know that it's them because their range is so good. And
How
they're
common is that?
Very.
Rather, huh?
Yeah.
Like you said, that one lady who'd passed away. What's her name again? I'm sorry.
June Foray.
June Foray. She had done all those the background characters. You said 7 or 8 characters of a different one in the Snowman or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually very common. You know, it's like I've been working on a project now that, once again, I can't talk about because it hasn't been released.
Yeah.
But for their pilot episode, there was 8 characters in it, and I played all the parts.
Oh.
And I didn't even know.
Yeah, that's great.
They kept sending me stuff. They're like, can you do this line in this way? Okay. And then they finally sent me back the pilot animation, and I was like, wow, that's really great. Like, who did all these voices? And then
You.
the credit was me. And I was like, I don't remember doing
One
any of
voice
that.
actor.
I remember doing 2 of the parts. That's
One
all.
man, one microphone,
So let's
8 characters.
We'll hit the big one. Mel Blanc, Porky the Pig, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Elmer Fudd, Tweety, Sylvester, Wile E. Coyote, the Roadrunner, Yosemite Sam, Sam the Sheepdog, Tasmanian Devil, Speedy Gonzales, Marvin the Martian, Foghorn Leghorn, and Pepe Le Pew to only scratch the surface.
To just scratch the surface.
Yeah.
The dudes like you two putting out like Joshua Tree, you know, where like every song on there is a radio single.
Right.
You know, it's like, here's my album of hits.
Yeah.
It's like, that's him.
Yeah.
Everything he did was just awesome.
Oh my God, something just clicked for me. My best voice acting experience was in a video game, definitely. It's a pretty modern video game, and if you guys have played it, it's called BioShock Infinite, and it's, oh my God, it was fucking incredible. The more I think about it, and the behind the scenes of watching them do these emotional takes, 'cause I guess like you were saying, a lot of voice acting around the world, especially for big international video games, is like different people in different high quality studios Skyping each other and stuff. Ken, oh boy, what's his name? Ken something. Eek, I should know his name, but he's the guy behind 4K and the whole BioShock franchise. Not BioShock 2. He didn't do that one because it was terrible. But he did this BioShock Infinite is this beautiful storyline about religion and race and spirituality and science and alternate timelines, and it's very well done. And he decided to bring in all the voice actors and sit them down in one studio. And they did various things like there's this cool clip of them singing a song. There's like it's like a little Easter egg you can find in the game where you walk in and he wanted to get rid of the silent protagonist, right? So the idea that as the main character, it inhibits you because you don't talk. And people are like, "Hey man, what do you think?" And you're like, and they're like, "Totally, we're gonna go do that thing." Instead, you're this guy named Booker. Booker, something like Booker, I think. And he used to be a Pinkerton, which is like he used to like go and put down slaves in revolutions, right? So it's like this really raw backstory. He's this guy who's like really troubled. Every time he looks into like a thing of water or a reflective surface, you see him really looking at himself and thinking like, "Oh, I'm a piece of shit," or whatever it is. And there's this scene where they sit down and play guitar, and the guy who's a voice actor and the chick who plays Elizabeth, who's just the most lovely, endearing character you'll ever meet in your entire video game life. They play this song, and they both happen to be singers. So Ken sits them down, this is all on video, please look it up, and says, "All right, play it for me." And they do it perfectly, and he goes, "Oh God, that was terrible." They're like, "What do you mean? It was great." He's like, it wasn't authentic enough. So he goes through all these processes by making it much more difficult for them to play this song. And it comes out as this super authentic thing. And when you encounter it in the video game world, it feels like something that really just happened in the moment where like Elizabeth sees this guitar. So the long story short of the game, Elizabeth follows you around. She's a really smart AI character who if you kill an enemy and you're hiding there and you run out of bullets, she'll be like, "Booker," and I think that's his name. God damn it. I think it's Booker. She'll like throw you ammo from the dead corpse. So she's like a friend, right? And there's one time you walk into this room and she picks a guitar up and sings and you sing with her, and oh my God, it's incredible. That, and then one other scene where she doesn't know how to control her powers, and he's like not sure. Damn it, I can't remember this guy's Ken's name. Anyway, she's not sure how to control her powers and she's sort of out of control, and she has to do this fake crying thing, and Ken isn't feeling it, so he starts tearing into her. He like commands the other voice actor guy to like really like aggressively light her up, like real stuff, and she starts sobbing and doing this, and it was, oh God, and then he's like, "Now do your line now," and then she does it, and it's so good. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, look it up. BioShock Infinite.
That's cool. Well, the method acting side to that is awesome. But you know, when you're coming up with a new character, you're supposed to sort of go down a little checklist. I mean, there's rules in voiceover, and then there's also, you're supposed to break them all too.
Of course.
But, if you don't immediately have a vision in your head of what this character is supposed to sound like, you can sort of use this little list, like a checklist, to help you along that path. Which sort of falls into what you're talking about here. Right? One of the things that you're supposed to put in there is a defect.
Gotcha.
Because everybody's got something.
Right.
You know, so whether it's they're really dumb or they have a lisp or, you know, they had a stroke and so now half their face hangs down to the right. It all affects how your voice is. It's like with the radio stuff, and you smile. And by smiling and making that shape, we sense that smile coming through.
That is nowhere is that more true than open air radio, you know, 102.3.
Yeah.
They all sound like they're smiling all the time. And I think Mikey is hiring people who smile while they talk.
It could be true, you know.
Serious, listen to them.
Yeah.
I find if I've just woken up in the morning and I'm still halfway through my coffee and I go in and start knocking out auditions and I listen to my stuff, I'm like, I sound really serious. And I realize it's because mostly my face is just relaxed and I'm kind of not really feeling anything.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't sound like I'm smiling, like now.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and it really has to be, it's so much about how you hold yourself and
representing an authentic human, and authentic humans are flawed. So it makes sense that that's so important to how we receive that.
Yeah, one of the first real solid bits of criticism that Debbie gave to me was quit pronouncing your words.
Ooh.
Right?
I was totally overpronouncing all of my words, and I was speaking in a way where I was pronouncing all of my consonants and all of the ends of my words, which is totally not how we talk.
Yeah, you're sort of like hyper reading the stuff that you're supposed to get.
Yeah, she's like, you'll get hired a lot more if you learn how to just kind of round stuff out a little bit.
Right.
It's like your T's should sound like D's, and the ends of your words, it's not as important as you think.
Right.
Well, I've always liked to say that the Southern drawl is a lazy man's way of using the mouth.
Wow.
Depends on which drawl.
That's true. There's a lot.
I don't know shit.
I grew up going to Texas all the time, and I loved. We had car games because that's a good 12 hours in a car or whatever. And my Aunt Sharon she was from East Texas, and it was very much like the kind of like rancher kind of Hollywood version of like lat and nan.
Yeah, Southern California, Portland, like hipster sound is also the same thing. Really relax your face. Don't try hard for like O's and things like that, you know?
So there are pretty well-established techniques for certain particular accents.
Oh, there's a recipe for all of them.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like I was learning how to do a Polish accent, and they're like, start with the Russian accent, which is like very much in the back of your throat, and you sort of push the sides of your mouth out. And now, and now when you want to talk Polish, you just push it all into the front of your mouth, and you just don't move your mouth very much. And now you sound Polish.
I have not been to Poland for many years, but I hear the changes have been very good.
Yeah, Poland's a beautiful country. But I thought that was kind of interesting that really like a lot of Eastern Europe starts from, you start from a Russian accent and then you'll tweak a couple of vowels or just move it up and down in your throat or forward and back in your mouth, and that's where you end up getting the sound.
I wonder what the psychology is and how much you might learn about a culture based on speaking like they do.
Well, it really hits me every time I try it.
Yeah.
And especially working on the Polish one, I was like, and having been to Poland not that long ago, I was like, Poland has had a pretty depressing history, and, they kind of get their asses kicked a lot in wars and stuff, and they're sort of in the middle of a lot of bad things, and they've suffered a lot. And I realized that in doing the accent, it's really just sort of like I'm depressed and I don't really care anymore.
Well, when they say in Poland, when life kicks you down, you stay.
Oh, God.
You can hear it in my voice.
I got to try much harder when I'm doing my Russian accent. And now that I'm in Poland, I just don't care anymore.
Nice.
Let's try and hammer out differences between British and Scottish.
Wow, those are good ones. I've sort of been purposely not exploring that world because a lot of people are really good at it, and I've been intimidated by how good you have to be able to qualify in that world.
Yeah.
But there are lots of real significant ones, and those are also ones like there's the Scottish, Irish, Northern, UK accents. There's the New Zealand, South Africa, Australian accents, and when you do any of those, you have to be really good at not creeping into the others.
Yeah.
And you have to be really good because the natives from those places are hypercritical about their accent.
Tear you apart.
They own it, and they really are going to be your worst critics regarding your accuracy. So there's certain ones where I work on more Middle Eastern accents because they aren't as critical.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And there aren't as many competitors too. you may notice I go for low-hanging fruit a lot.
That's okay. I hear it's tasty.
Hey,
It pays well.
keeps me fed. But that's sort of like my next year's task is to learn some of those, and specifically the people that really specialize in it. I watched a webinar from this really awesome voice actor whose name I can't remember now. An unbelievable vocal chameleon. He can listen to anybody and do them perfectly.
He's got
Cool.
like perfect pitch for voice acting.
It's unreal what this guy can do. And he can do also these incredible impersonations of like anybody. So he's a really good comedian along those lines as well. And he's from Scotland. And in this webinar, he was bouncing around to different parts of Scotland and doing all the different dialects that are regional. And it was unbelievable to me, A, how good this guy was, but B, how many of them there are. And the more you open up your ears and your mind to people's voices wherever you go, we all vary a lot regionally.
Right.
Kind of wherever you go. It's like if you're in San Diego or if you're in Santa Barbara, it's still kind of surfery, but they're different.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of Southern accents. I mean, if you say you can do a Southern accent, well, any real director is going to be like, yeah, I want you to be from rural South Carolina.
That's totally different than like Texas.
Totally.
Yeah. Interesting. That makes a lot of sense to me too, that like sort of the geographical and regional landscape as well as the cultural landscape are going to shape how you express yourself.
It's totally true. And it's the way language evolves as well. It just sort of moves with people and with trends and varies from where you are.
Yeah. That's sick.
The coolest unexpected thing from being a voice actor is how much I learn about everything.
Yeah.
in the process.
Well, that means I have to kick you off the podcast because this is Nothing Explained, and we can't go around explaining everything.
Yeah, well, it's been pretty fascinating from audiobooks to explainer videos to even some of the background science and psychology. It's been well beyond a college education.
Right.
Well, we're nearing the end of our podcast, but I do want to have a little bit of fun. How would you feel about a little improvisation with let's all do an evil voice? And
How evil do you want? I need backstory.
that's up to you. But I was thinking we could all be discussing evil ideas, but they would be just poor, really bad at being evil. For example.
Give us a scenario. Paint the stage, or I can do that if you like.
Recently, I found my way into a local school and I cut all the erasers off of all the pencils.
Nice laugh. That is a very. Let's try our evil laughs out by all means.
You're up.
Oh boy.
Oh, you know what? That reminded me of.
Or there's also the classic line that we can also do too, which is the fools, I'll show them all.
Very Shakespearean.
That's what it is in Japanese, like asshole.
Kisama.
Is that like you're being an asshole?
Well, that's always like when the guy you're like, oh, I'm a tough dude, and then the dude steps to you, and he's like way stronger than you thought, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, you countered me already, and you're like, I will get you, Kisama. You know, you're just expressing that like, oh, and now it's getting serious, asshole.
Yeah.
What was that? Just remind me of the little side guy to Joe Boba the Fett's little guy standing next to him.
Yeah, that's a sickly, evil little character.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
My stomach is like closing up like that. Like my stomach's a little bit like. Whoa,
It
man,
takes
heads
some
up.
real effort to be a voice actor.
Yeah.
I've heard many times that acting is a physical profession.
And the care for it, we got off on a tangent, but I was talking about doing that one video game job, and we were on the phone for about an hour and a half, and it was a lot of real anger and stuff, and like this mean sociopathic guy barking out orders to his minions and stuff. And my voice felt sunburned for the next 2 days.
Oh,
Damn.
yeah, totally.
Have you ever turned down a gig because you thought it might do too much damage to you?
I skip auditions regularly because I just don't feel up to it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I know, especially like the car commercials and stuff that we were talking about, there's technique to it, being able to do those things, and how you use the microphone for a lot of stuff is a big deal too, because right now I'm on top of the microphone and you can hear a lot more bass in my voice because you're actually hearing into my throat than you are now where I'm about a foot away from the microphone.
Yeah, and also you have to use your mask in a different way to get the sound all the way to the microphone.
Indeed.
Yeah, so that's very interesting. Tell me, if you're a voice actor or you're somebody who uses your voice, what are some tips and techniques for taking care of your voice properly?
Oh, good one.
Oh, boy, there's a ton. But they all come down to basic, good, healthy living, Make sure you do some cardio exercise every day.
Wow, I've actually not heard that one.
Because it's all about that ab strength and the breathing and developing your diaphragm and being able to hold your breath and push. And be able to control your breath.
Stamina, you could say.
It's totally, stamina and control and refined control.
Control, yeah.
You have to watch your diet, especially when you're about to record. So
foods to avoid.
Foods to avoid: cheese, dairy in general, chocolate, citrus fruit.
Okay.
Except for lemon. You put lemon in your tea with some honey, but you also want to avoid sugar because that also, it's just all the stuff that makes you phlegmy.
Phlegm's no good.
So, and actually cutting down on just general fat in your diet, less meat, more veggies. And then warm tea with honey and lemon that's the lifeblood of a good voice. This is one you may have heard from, because I learned it first from an opera singer that was a vocal coach. You should eat peeled red apples, because they lubricate your voice.
I've heard that.
Without making it goopy.
Gunky, yeah.
Yeah. Then it's get plenty of sleep, drink lots of water. And the reason why you drink lots of water is actually because of mouth sounds. The clicky sounds that you'd get from dry mouth are things that will get you fired.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all that stuff
and murders you.
And sometimes there'll be a little pop, like in the middle of a word, and I was like, "Where did that come from?" It's because I'm about a quart low.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about mouth noises.
Lots of mouth noises.
That's another specialty that if you can do them well, you'll get hired.
Yeah, doing all different kinds of cool effects.
Like
I was thinking about
the cheetah. Chester cheetah.
There's a lot of them.
That's my favorite, dude.
You see them all shake their head when they get their bell rung.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was thinking also, like, if you're a good anime voice actor, you must be good at sounding like you're getting beat up really well.
Oh, man.
Yeah, whatever.
Those are some of the funnest things, though. It's like, I did another video game. They're like, "Can you give us some death sounds?"
Oh, nice. Can you do some for us right now?
And that's always at the end. Yeah, actually, one of my best times from a directed session was I just kept going. They wanted me to do like 6, and I did like 26, and these guys were totally cracking up because I kept taking it from like, oof,
That's great. And they can just cut them up, yeah. That's great. That's great. And it's fun, and you get to be a kid and play and have a good time.
That's it. I laugh hysterically at my job every day.
That's wonderful. I wish more people could say that about their jobs.
Well, it's really about the joy of doing the thing you love.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that my life paths have helped me stumble into the thing I really love to do. Because, I really love going to work for those full hours every day.
How long have you been doing it now?
I've been doing it for about 6 years, and I've been making a full living for close to 3.
Congratulations. That's so awesome.
What would you say your time commitment is?
It's about 6 hours a day for being at the microphone.
All right, that's awesome.
And then I also spend time researching and watching webinars and learning how to market myself and
honing your voice and going to vocal coaches and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it really ends up being about a 40-hour-a-week job, but I really look at it like it's a lifestyle. It's way more than that, because going to the gym is just as much of it as practicing an English accent.
Yeah.
And sending invoices to clients that have forgot to pay is just as important as doing a good audition.
All the business stuff, all the business side of it,
Yeah, so you got to hustle like it's a real business, and you got to stay after it like it's a real business. It's not a cakewalk. It's a hard job, physically and mentally, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else. It's awesome.
Word.
Final question I've got: if there's somebody who's interested in the business or maybe is just in this, is there anything to be careful of or avoid business-wise? Any like sketchy things that can happen?
I certainly, I kind of hear stuff, but I haven't experienced it. I see evidence of some voice actors getting or thinking they're going to get ripped off by people, like, not doing the full spot in the audition because they don't want the director to steal their recording.
But never actually seen that happen.
I've never actually seen it happen.
Okay,
I've been paid 100% of the time.
Excellent.
And this is thousands of gigs.
That's awesome.
So, most everybody out there is really great. I'd say the one thing to watch out for is your own ego. There's those days when you think you're great, and that's great. That's really good. But it doesn't mean you are. And,
It's subjective.
And don't let your guard down because of it.
Yeah, and don't ever think you have gotten as good as it's ever going to get. That you need to stop practicing or anything like that.
There's another guy, I actually want to hire him as a coach, but I watched one of his webinars, and this is a guy he's been a SAG actor since he was 17. He's in his mid-50s now. He's done over 30,000 radio ads, as well as everything else. And one of his quotes, which has really become a mantra for me now, is the second you think you don't have anything left to learn in this business is the day you should quit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds
Probably
great.
true of almost any art and craft. Right?
Everything. There is no mastery.
No.
Right on. Well, let's wrap it up. Tell the people, don't forget, everyone, that Darren has a children's book,
Yep.
Amelia Lives Happily Ever After.
Amelia Lives Happily Ever After,
if that
which you can
resonates
also...
with you can find it where?
DJRkidsbooks.com, or you can find it on Amazon just by Googling Amelia Lives Happily Ever After. Or you can find me on Facebook, Darren Roebuck, or DJR Voiceover, or Amelia has a page too. And, it doesn't really matter. No, if you get it on Amazon or off of Facebook, I'm still the guy stuffing one in an envelope and sending it to you.
Fair enough.
Could you ever imagine an animated version of this? Like, speaking of voices, that's an interesting little...
I drew this. To me, this is a storyboard.
Cool.
The whole idea, and even if you look at it, there's depth of field in the in the illustrations and stuff.
What a
because
good business pitch on your part.
I looked at it like it's a movie.
Yeah. Well, that's how all good sort of narrative scripts should be, right? And if folks want to hire you to do some voice acting work, where would they find you?
Same places. DJRvoiceover@gmail.com is where you can get me. You find me on Facebook, and then also through the if you put me in the search bar on voices.com, you'll find me there too.
Cool. All right. Well, I tell you what, man, this has been Nothing Explained. I've had a really good time here with my friends Ryan Foo. Please say hello to the camera.
Hi there.
And our voice talent for the day has been Darren Roebuck. Darren, please say hi.
Thank you so very much for having me on today. It's been just an absolute pleasure.
Well, not as much of a pleasure as it has been sitting across the table from you. We'll see you all next week, everybody.
Bye.
Oh, and shout out to Rich and the Ghost House for hosting us here at WeAreDenver.
We are Denver.
The real Denver.